But a young person really doesn't succeed in our neighborhood. Not as only as a boxer, but you don't really succeed until you join a gang. Now in the 50s and 60s, there were almost 200 fighting gangs in the city of New York. Someone's up to 400 fighting members in a gang. The Mau Mau's. They flew their colors. You could tell a Mau Mau. He had his fedora, his little red feather. He had his cane. Open the cane as a big blade. The Mau Mau's, they came. The swords came, and the Amboy Dukes from Lower East Side, and the bishops came and fought, and the chaplains, 400 strong from Bedford-Stuyvesant, and the Beachcombers. Man, I thought, hey, I'm fighting in a ring. I'm somebody in a ring. I want to be a gangbanger, man. I'm going to be cool. Hey, by the way, most of my friends are really cool. They're dead. That's as cool as you get. That's as cool as you get. And so I was initiated into a gang. You don't just join a gang, you're initiated into the gang. So they brought me down to the beach, Coney Island Beach, rolled me in the salt water, tied me to a piling, took the garrison belt with a big buckle and whipped me. You couldn't cry out, because if you cried out, there was a soldier, what they called soldier, on one side with a switchblade, another on the other side. They come up under your armpit, so they cut a C in your forehead or in your back. And so they beat me, and I was cool. I was tough. I was nobody, and I had no friend. So man, the hood is my home, my homies, my family, my friends. I was initiated into the Beachcombers. Became a soldier in the Beachcombers. By the way, those gangs were well organized in those days, as they are today. But they weren't just selling drugs and doing those. They were fighting. They were fighting for turf, fighting for, not like today. Now it's... But anyway, those gangs, you had to be initiated into them. They were well organized. There was a president, a vice president, a light-up man. He took care of the weapons. Talk about sort of shotguns. We talk about billy clubs, baseball bats drilled, filled with lead. Stiletto, push-button blade, go through 3/4-inch piece of plywood. And he took care of the weapons, the light-up man, and then there was the treasurer, took care of the loot, and then there was the council of war, every gang, council of war. If we were going to war against the Mau Mau's, if they were going to go to war against us, or any gang in the city, if they were going to go to war, the council of war met, and then the place was decided on. I can't describe for you what it's like. 200 guys on a schoolyard, fighting back to back with an ash barrel cover on your arm, switchblade in your hand, baseball bat in your hand. Seeing young boys fall in the gutter, their stomachs slit open, they're crying for their mothers. One night, my best friend, 16 years old, Johnny, had his head blown off his shoulders. He died at 16 in a pool of blood. That's really cool. And you know the coolest thing about it? I initiated him into the gang. Try to live with that a lifetime. That was my world. Beachcomber. Fought my way up. Became a leader in the Beachcomber. So there I was, Ron Halverson, killer, fighting in the ring, fighting in the streets, loved to fight. Any reason to fight. Run a man's face down a brick wall, stomp him into the ground, that meant nothing. That meant nothing. That was my world. That was the ghetto. That was, hey, that was my family. But I couldn't trust any of them. Not really. Not really. Why did we fight, people say? Well, we wanted a turf, a little more turf. Well, maybe someone slighted a girlfriend of ours, so we go to fight, even to death. They would come from the South Bronx, and they would come from Hell's Kitchen, and they'd come and fight on the beach and bury the dead in the sand. And I was without a friend. I was lost. And I was miserable. And God began to move. It's amazing. One teenager, listen to me, one teenager was converted to Christ in my neighborhood. That's one. A lot of people say to me, one person, we can't make a difference. One teenager converted. He's in Brooklyn. He's in Coney Island. He's sharing his faith. He's a 15-year-old teenager. Here I am, black leather jacket. Hey, I'm flying my colors, skull, blood dripping over the skull, motorcycle boots, switchblade in my pocket. I'm cool. Here's a 15-year-old boy in love with Jesus Christ, a 15-year-old boy who shared Christ wherever he went. He wasn't afraid of nothing and no one. And he'd walk through the neighborhood with a smile on his face. We'd look at him. We laughed. We named him Isaiah. I thought that was funny until I got converted. They called me Jeremiah, and you can figure that one out. You figure that out. That's my friend. And he comes to share faith with me. Standing on a street corner, looking cool, man. Sideburns, DA, Ada Fonz wasn't cool. I was cool. Jim tries to share faith with the gangbangers. He tried to share faith, and we laughed at him and made fun of him. But down deep in our heart, we envied him. Because every time I walked by an alleyway, I had to look down to be sure. Every time I heard a siren, boom, I ducked and hid. Every time I heard steps behind me, I ran. Because that was my world, living in the shadow of death. But he wanted to share faith, and I remember one time he came up to me, he says, hey, would you go to a Bible study with me? A Bible study? I couldn't even read. I was 16 years old. I was functionally illiterate. I was in high school and I couldn't read. You say, how could you get to high school and not read? If you are a teacher and had me in your class, you would graduate me to the next class too, just to get rid of me. I'll tell you, school, well, I'll tell you something about that later. But anyway, there's Jim. He's sharing faith. He's talking about Jesus Christ. He's telling about the gospel. And there was such a change in Jim. And, we all envied him. But we finally, after a while, he would come by. We'd stop cursing. We'd stop being cool. We'd just, here comes Isaiah. We feel, I don't know. Looking around, maybe God would strike us any moment, And there's Jim. He went off to a Christian school in Queens, had to travel 2 hours each way. I went to a vocational high school. Really, it was a preparation for reform school. Hey, you run up the down staircase and find a young boy has slit his stomach open, they robbed him for his cookie money. Or a young man overdosed. Hey, by the way, don't tell me about drugs. Don't tell me about that world. I spent 8-10 years of my ministry for the drug addicts in America. Don't you talk to me about the high. I'll show you for every high you have 10,000 lows. They would overdose the kid on a school roof, and they'd strip him of anything worth any money, and they'd throw him over the roof. That was his friends. I found an 8-year-old boy. I was witnessing for Christ in Harlem, and I found an 8-year-old boy with a needle stuck in his arm, and he's dying. He died in my arm. Don't you tell me about drugs. I went to vocational high school. It was a training school. I was going to learn to fix cars. I stole cars. I figured I could learn to fix them. Don't know why. If I needed another one, it's easy to get another car and fix it, but we'd play basketball, and the cheerleaders from the other school would come, and the whole 60th precinct of policemen had to be in front of them, protecting them. That's how bad this place was.